So what's going on, guys, and welcome back to a brand new video. Hope you all are having a wonderful day. And something that I like to do quite often on this channel is rank weapons, either putting them on a worst to best scale or doing a top 10 best guns. And I like to do top 10s for a multitude of different reasons. Not only is it interesting for me to look at the best guns in the game currently and then have a discussion about that with you guys down in the comments, and it can be just like a really interesting back and forth, but it also comes from someone who plays the game virtually every single day and is pretty on top of the meta in terms of, what's effective and what's not. And so today we're going to be switching it up a little bit. Now, I was on the internet the other day and I found this article from Keen Gamer that was posted on November 22nd, 2019. So honestly, pretty recent and should be up to date with most of the current weapon metas. And they did the top 6 best weapons in PUBG. Now, this title caught my eye because typically you would do something like a top 5 or a top 10. These are the most common numbers that you would do on this topic. Or if you want to go even crazier, you just rank every weapon. So the top 6 just kind of caught my eye for some reason, and I wanted to see what they have to say. Now, typically when I do weapon rankings, there always is at least a little bit of personal bias. This would be if anybody ranked the weapons in this game. There would be a hint of personal preference that would sway the results, and I completely understand that. But for this list, honestly, I don't really understand. Personal bias doesn't even make sense in this. So today we're going to be reading through probably the worst PUBG ranking article I think I've ever seen in my entire life. So guys, let's read through this article and let's see if this is keck or cringe. So coming in at their number 6 spot is going to be the M249, and let's read what they have to say about it. The M249 is another special gun, which is precisely why you can only find it in crates. This is a unique breed of light machine gun with a very quick fire rate and a big 100 magazine capacity. That, combined with its higher base damage, makes this firearm devastating at closer distances. This gun can even blow up vehicles pretty sharpish. I don't think that's how you say it, but alright. Furthermore, the M249 has a great range for a machine gun and makes it handy for long-distance fire. Now, honestly, starting out this list isn't too bad. I don't know if I would necessarily put the M249 at the number 6 spot in terms of a total ranking out of every gun in the game, but as far as like starting out here, this is a pretty respectable pick. Nothing they said in that description was inherently wrong. Yeah, it actually does have a pretty decent fire rate and good base damage, but they did gloss over a lot of the good things about it and also some of the negative attributes, like it takes 8 million years to reload. And nothing really too bad there. Again, you can't hate this list for the M249 being its first pick, but moving on and coming in at their number 5 spot is the AWM. So this is how the article describes the AWM. The AWM is a killer sniper rifle and the gun with the highest base damage in PUBG. It only takes a few shots to take players down with the AWM, and it's devastating for headshots. This is also the gun with the best range that enables players to shoot down hostiles from considerable distances with the 8x scope. Note, however, this gun can only be picked up from crates, if you guys didn't know that, by the way. Again, nothing inherently wrong with this description, but they really gloss over some of the key points about it, and they also say that it should only take a few shots to take someone down. Realistically, you should only be using one shot to take someone down with the AWM, unless they're fully level 3'd out, but even so, I would probably rank the AWM much higher than it being a top 5, but then, again, I understand, like, at least it's in a top 5. I would put it in top 3, and I'm sure a lot of you guys would as well, but I guess we're going to have to settle with this, but I also say this is like the best weapon that has considerable range and can shoot down enemies with an 8x scope. I mean, that's pretty much any sniper rifle or DMR for that matter. In some circumstances, I would argue the Mini 14 is potentially better than the AWM, especially when going up against like a squad of people. If you're playing solo squads, I think I'd rather have that in some very particular cases, but still, I understand the point. Again, this is a top 5 for the AWM, and I don't hate this list at all yet, but let's move on, shall we? So coming in at the number 4 spot on this list is the Tommy gun. Yeah, so this is what they have to say about it. The Tommy Thompson gun is another submachine gun that is great in close quarters. It's more effective than other SMGs and has the highest base damage of guns within that category. Like all SMGs, it has a good fire rate, albeit not on par with the Vector or Uzi in that respect. The gun also has the largest magazine capacity, which means it can fire off the most ammunition without reloading. It can't match the range of assault rifles, however, which makes the likes of the AKM better alternatives. Hold on, there's actually a lot wrong with that statement. The first thing they say is the Tommy gun actually has the highest base damage, which is true, but it's not saying much because the UMP has only one less damage per bullet than the Tommy gun, so it's really not that big of a thing to boast. But it's also, it says it's more effective in the other SMGs in close range combat, which I think could not be further from the truth. I would rather have a micro Uzi or even a Vector, potentially even a UMP, more often than not in a close range combat circumstance than the Tommy gun. They also give out a statement which is just blatantly wrong. The Tommy gun has the highest magazine capacity, which, again, used to be true if you're talking like years ago PUBG, but this article was written in November. When the Tommy gun only holds 50, they forgot about the most forgotten weapon in the game, the PP Bison, which I think is 53. Either way, it doesn't matter which way you turn this list. The Tommy gun is not a top 6 weapons of all time in this game. Maybe back in the day you could put it in the top 10 when there was only like 11 other guns in the game years ago. But at current day in PUBG, the Tommy gun doesn't even stack up high in the SMG class, let alone the rest of the guns in general. So this, I just have to fully disagree with, and I'm sure most of you guys do too. Coming in at the number 3 spot on this list, they say the UMP9, but again, when this was written, it would have to be the UMP45, so either way, this one doesn't really matter, it's just the UMP in general, but this is what they have to say about the weapon. Although this doesn't have the best fire rate for a submachine gun, it beats most SMGs when it comes to base damage, thus, it's a good submachine gun to have for close quarter firing. This is also the submachine gun with the best range, which makes it the best SMG from shooting from a distance. It's kind of redundant. Furthermore, there are a slew of accessories for the UMP9 that enhances flexibility. Now, one thing they don't mention here is that base damage doesn't necessarily equal a good time to kill. For example, the PP Bison that we talked about doesn't actually have bad base damage, per bullet, but the fire rate really ticks down on being able to melt enemies fast, so almost negating that damage that you're doing. It's not all about the base damage per bullet. There's a lot to do with the range that you're going to be shooting at and how fast you're going to be hitting your enemies. So there's a lot to take into account instead of just this one particular number. Even when the UMP was at its peak, when it was still the UMP9 and it was buffed in that regard, it was still never an amazing weapon. It was always reliable and people used it as sort of a secondary assault rifle just because it would never let you down. It was pretty consistent, but it was never this melt machine that they're making it out to be. Again, I really liked the UMP9, months ago, but ever since it changed to the UMP45, this has probably become one of the least popular guns in the game, and I would also say probably least effective. Definitely doesn't deserve to be on any top 6 spot, I think, in its current form, and I don't even think I'd put it in my top 10. Coming today at their number 2 spot on this list is the GROZA, and again, this is a pretty respectable pick. I don't know if I'd put this gun second in the game, but again, it's really good, so let's see what they have to say. The GROZA is probably of the best assault rifles and one of the best PUBG guns generally, but you'll only find it in airdropped crates. It matches the AKM's base damage, but it has a better fire rate than the gun and all other ARs for that matter, and its fire rate even outmatches some of the submachine guns. GROZA's impressive fire rate and base damage is a killer combination. Furthermore, this AR has decent enough range for players to take out hostiles at some distance. This one, I can't really argue with. The barrel actually has the same fire rate as the GROZA, even though it's slightly lower damage, making its time to kill a little bit longer, so that's probably why you're still going to want to pick the airdrop weapon, of course. But again, I simply go back to my point that base damage doesn't necessarily always equal a good gun. The crossbow has one of the highest base damages in the game, but is that weapon competitive? Absolutely not. They do talk about how good its range is for an assault rifle, which I don't know. I don't really think it's that special. The AUG is much better at shooting from a distance than the GROZA is. The 7.62 ARs, of course, just fire slower, and the bullets travel a bit slower as well, so it's just not an ideal cutout scenario for that. But again, personal bias aside, let's move on. Coming in at the number 1 spot on this list, guys, we have none other than the AKM. The AKM is a heavy-duty and versatile assault rifle. This gun is one of the best to pick up, primarily because it has the highest base damage of the guns within the assault rifle range category, along with the airdropped GROZA, thus it can take down enemies quickly with headshots. As an assault rifle, the AKM is one of the most flexible guns in PUBG that's effective for both short and longer range combat with a range that outmatches all submachine guns, plus it's not especially hard to find this firearm. Now, this one, let's go ahead and unpack this a bit. Now, I kind of realized that I think this list was meant to be read backwards, but if that's the case, that would still insinuate that the Tommy gun is better than the GROZA, so either way, this list is wrong no matter which way you look at it, but let's say the AKM is truly the #1 spot. They mentioned the AKM has very high base damage, true, but they also don't mention that the incredibly slow fire rate that the AKM suffers from, and also the extreme amount of vertical recoil that, you know, a lot of players have a tough time controlling, as well as it not being very flexible. They mentioned that in this article, but it's really not. You're not able to customize this out like you would an M4. It doesn't have the same versatility that the M416 does. I would say the AKM has always struggled a little bit, and the M416, I think, is just, in all of the cases that they make, the M4 is just the more reliable weapon when it comes to range, customizability, flexibility, all of that. I just don't, it baffles me the M4 is not on this list, as it's generally considered the most popular common weapon in this game. This article was most likely written by somebody who has never played PUBG before. It was probably somebody who was hired to make this list, and they just quickly did a couple Google searches and then looked at these statistics of these weapons, because on paper, if you're just looking at things like base damage and whatnot, then yeah, you're probably going to end up with a list of something like this. You're just looking at the highest like numbers in that category and not really understanding the nuances of what makes each weapon unique, individual, and special. Either way, I wanted to look at this list with you guys and talk about it with you and see what you think. This happens a lot with other games that, you know, will just be casually looked at by somebody writing an article on it, and then they hardly know anything about the game, but they'll do some quick Google searches and then just make a list out of that. But anybody who's experienced in the game knows that this is pretty much almost all inaccurate. But either way, I hope you guys did enjoy the video today. We're ranking weapons, but it wasn't my doing. I liked reading this article and seeing what someone else had to say about it. So if you guys want me to do more of this, maybe looking at different articles and rankings and stuff, I'd love to continue this. Show me by dropping a like rating if you want to see more. And of course, subscribe if you are brand new to the channel. And also, guys, go follow me over on Twitch, where I'm going to be streaming almost every single day. That is in the description also. But without further ado, guys, have a great rest of your day. I got to go, everyone, and peace out.